Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Glad to have you joining with us today for our midweek Maranatha. How are you doing, John? We got John Holler on right now. How you doing, John?
I'm doing okay. I'm just hoping and praying we have enough to talk about.
I don't know. I think we might have to kind of stretch it a little bit, but we'll make it work. We'll make it work. What do you
Okay.
think? Yeah.
I don't want to have to do, a song or something like that to fill up the time.
Yeah.
You don't want me to do a
Well,
song to fill up the time.
yeah, we want to keep our viewers.
That's right. That's right. No need punishing them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Hey, these are hard enough times, right? I
That's
mean,
right.
yeah,
That's
I mean,
right.
these are times of tribulation and all of that. We don't want to make it worse than it already is, John.
That's right.
Oh man, I tell you, there is so much to talk about, guys. So much to talk about. Living in a polycrisis. The title today, Living in a Polycrisis. Globalism rising. Hey, John, why don't we just start off? Why don't you just describe here for everyone in case they don't know what a polycrisis is and how that really applies to what is going on right now with Israel?
So the polycrisis is a term of art that I'm not sure when the first time polycrisis was used. I looked back through my own personal records, and I think I did. I titled a prophecy update "Polycrisis" a number of years ago.
Oh, really?
I had gotten the term off of. It was probably a World Economic Forum publication or something like that. The polycrisis. In other words, there's a whole bunch of small crises that sort of merge into a polycrisis, so that it's similar to what we would call a converging of crises. I use the term convergence a lot, so it would be that's what it would be, a convergence of crises. And the globalist wing of the world, the elites, they really want to use that to gain more control of everything. I'm not so sure that part of that desire is to they want to rule over the world, but I don't think they would care if there was less people around to rule over. There's this thing operates on multi levels. Of course, there's health, there's economy, there's government, there's wars, there's pandemics, there's all sorts of things. So and the funny thing is, the solution to every one of the crises or the polycrisis is for them to control more.
The sad part about it, John, is that I would say, the majority, if not even the totality of the crises that are out there, they create. And then they want to come around and they want to solve the problems and the issues that stem from those crises, which therefore brings about control over the people, over the masses, globalism, all of those things. And that just continues to bring about an even larger crises in trying to solve the problems that they create and saying, hey, look, we want peace, we want good health, we want to spread the wealth, so to speak, out there for everyone. All of these things, they create greater problems because the Lord is not at the center of what man needs in their world. They want to be the controllers of all of these things. And when we talk about this polycrisis, a number of these different crises that come together, that when they do, and as they do come together, as they're happening, in other words, simultaneously, what happens as a result of that is it has an exponential factor to that. And I believe that they monopolize on that as well. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely would agree with that.
Right.
Yeah. So that term probably originated 10, 11 years ago, I think, is when it started to kind of come into the terminology that people use, talking about geopolitical problems. And so now we have an international a global polycrisis. And so we see that. I mean, we see a converging of a lot of things going on with Israel. right now. War in the Middle East. Our friend Vladimir Putin yesterday was threatening nuclear war.
Again.
Changing the Russian nuclear doctrine. So there's plenty that we can get into.
Right. Well, and in changing the Russian nuclear doctrine, let's understand that I hear a little bit of talk about that out there, but that is really the result of the U.S. changing our nuclear doctrine. We did that first. We did that, I think it was a couple of months ago. I don't know if you saw that or not, John.
I don't remember seeing that or not, but look, it's been evolving for Vladimir Putin for some time. I think what he said yesterday is consistent with what he said as long as 6 or 7 years ago, in my opinion, as I analyze it. Where he said that if we feel threatened, we won't hesitate to do a first strike. Our policy is not to do it, but if we feel threatened, we'll do it. And he used the terminology back in, I think it was 2017 or 2018, when he announced it to a big Russian conglomerate meeting of everybody. You will go to hell and we will go to paradise.
Right.
At the end of it. So he knew that a lot of people were going to die, and probably the leaders of both countries.
And just to add a little bit of color to that, John, when he said if we feel threatened, he had specified exactly what he meant by that at other times. And what he specifically means by that is if the motherland of Russia feels threatened to the point of its very existence. Right. That at that point, now we don't know if he's going to stick by that or if he's going to adjust it somewhat, or we don't know. All I know is what he said is that if they feel threatened to the point of the very existence of the motherland of Russia, that then they will do that. And yeah.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah. So, he's got his own agenda, and he's going to do what he wants to do and justify it. I don't know. I find him to be a bit inconsistent because he says, we're afraid that, of Ukraine coming into NATO, that puts you too close to our borders. So we'll invade Ukraine to put you that close to our borders. And then he says, he continually says, the West is weak, the West is weak, the West is weak. And I'm going to use nuclear weapons because I'm afraid of a bunch of weak people. So I don't have a lot of respect for him, but he's certainly an important world leader, particularly at this time.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely he is, specifically at this time. And by the way, talking about this whole Polycrisis, there's an article from the World Economic Forum dated January 13th of 2023. The title of that article actually is "We're on the Brink of a Polycrisis. How worried should we be?" And when we're looking at all of this, John, look, and we're going to really get into Israel here. There's a number of things I want to talk about with Israel in just a moment. When we talk about this, look, let me get there. We've got the situation globally with China right now. Look, they just sent a dummy, a dummy ICBM into the Pacific Ocean. Said, "Oh, it wasn't tied to anything. We test things all the time," and that's just blowing smoke. We all know it. They know it, and that was a very direct message at that very specific time. And that particular ICBM, by the way, if it was loaded, has the capacity to have 10 individual warheads within that one. So it's like it's a mega weapon in and of itself. We've got all of those issues going on. NATO prepares plan for huge casualties in case of war with Russia. That was reported in the Daily Mail and elsewhere. Congress is making those plans, I hear, as well, in regards to what if there are huge casualties in case of a war with Russia. And we're pushing Russia's buttons like there is no tomorrow. I mean, we just keep on moving in and moving in and moving in. And I just wonder, eventually the threats from Vladimir Putin may not be threats anymore at some point. They keep on pushing those buttons.
Well, at some point, it does kind of, you know, it certainly seems that there's a lot of people acting right now that don't have our best interests at heart, and they're operating on many levels. We just saw what happened, the stuff at the UN with regard to the Summit of the Future, the Pact for the Future. And that thing was extremely comprehensive, extremely broad. It passed. Really, something like that to affect us, it should be a treaty. And you know that this government, the administration, which is the candidate, I sent you that little meme that I saw that we just need to call her Ramallah Harris. I'm just, what happened was shocking. I saw an interview with my friend Michelle Bachmann while I was out at lunch today, and she was just saying, this is it. I mean, this is like everything that they wanted. And, you know, there was the big push for the World Health Organization to have this global pandemic treaty because there was pushback from many quarters, including the United States, organized by a number of people like Michelle. It didn't get through, but they just shoved it into this Pact for the Future anyway. And so, I mean, so there's all these people that want to tell us everything that we need to do. Like, they've got the world in such a good position right now. I mean, you know, it's literally like it's coming crashing down around them, and they're running around like everything's fine. No, don't look over here. Don't look over there. Look here. Everything's fine. And it's not, and we all know that it's not. But what they tried to put in place was just insane. It's comprehensive. It's controlling. It's one world government on steroids. And like I said, they shoved the health component in there because they couldn't get it through the World Health Organization. So now Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the UN, has the ability to declare an emergency, a global emergency. Now, that could be health, that could be economic, that could be war, it could be any number of global emergencies, which I think the Charlie Vector exercise that we went through a few years ago was sort of the trial run of what they really want to do. Included within that, by the way, the Pact for the Future was a huge, the Global Digital Compact, where they want everybody to be able to be controlled digitally. There's a lot of people in the world that don't have digital identities, digital devices, and that type of thing. So now they're trying to make everybody have that, so they want everybody to be there. They want everybody to be controlled. And I think, Kurt, if you look at it in the context of where we are with everything else, this Pact for the Future thing, its scale of importance and end times Bible prophecy is approaching 10 on a scale of 10. That's my view of it. I think it's that serious, that important.
And, you know, as you're talking about, they want everyone to be digitally connected. I mean, let's understand, the more that people are digitally connected, the more that people are controlled. So the digital connection is a means to an end. They're not looking out for the good of the people. They're looking out for the good of those technocrats that are out there and all the rest of them that want to control. So it's a means to an end. It's a means to an end of controlling the masses. That's what it's all about. And let's even look at this whole pact of the future, this whole thing there with the UN. Look, Russia, technically how these things are supposed to work, at least as far as I know, is that all of the member nations have to agree to it. Russia, I don't know if there was a couple others or not, I don't remember, but I do know that Russia protested this. And did you see what they did? They wrote Russia off.
Right.
They wrote Russia off. They just said, well, that doesn't work for us. So we're just going to write you off, and we're going to move ahead along with it anyhow. So now the very supposed organizational structure within the United Nations that is supposed to, and we understand, work a particular way, they bypassed their own rules of order in order to move forward with what they want to do anyhow, even though Russia, which is a major player in that, was not interested.
Yeah, I think China objected on a couple bases too. So, I mean, the world is really kind of splitting into different camps right now, which I'm not so sure is prophetic in and of itself as well. This only exacerbates that particular situation. But suffice it to say, we in the West were pretty much toast on these issues because our government's going along with it. So, I mean, here's one example. You've heard of the prosecutions of individuals for protesting immigrants from a particular religion that are taking place across the UK and England. Those people that are protesting or posting against these immigrants on social media are considered to be doing a hate crime. And people just for posting on the internet have been arrested, tried, or forced to plead guilty. And some of them are receiving sentences as long as 10 years just for posting things on the internet about a topic that's contrary to what the government wants to push. That's England. When I went to England, I went to the British Library and I looked at one of the original copies of the Magna Carta, which is sort of a foundational document in Western civilization. And they don't care about that. They certainly don't care about the U.S. Constitution. And so built within this Pact for the Future is a lot of control about what people say in terms of, we'll come after you if you post misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. There was a British police officer, captain or commander in some part of the area around London. And he said, look, we don't care if you're in America and you post something about this. We will come, we will indict you here, charge you with a crime, and then we will go to the courts in the U.S. and ask to have you extradited here to stand trial. Now, I'm pretty sure if Trump was elected, that's not going to happen. He would have sort of a few very choice words for the people who wanted to extradite Americans for what they said online. But do you think if Kamala Harris is elected that she's going to fight extradition requests from the UK for this? No.
Right.
And it's coming on every level. I mean, the Digital Access Act or whatever it was they enacted in the EU recently that really targeted the large tech platforms and threatened them with fines up to, I think, 6% of their global revenue per day for violations. Do you think they have our best interest at heart? That's coming out of the EU. So we're way down the road here on so many things that I don't think at this point they can or will be reversed.
Well, and let's not forget Hillary Clinton. That woman keeps on coming back like herpes. Hillary Clinton, she just said, what was it? I think it was just like a week ago or something I was watching, and wanting to clamp down on, the whole misinformation, on those who post misinformation. Guys, listen, we keep on hearing this, whether it's from Hillary Clinton, whether all of them, literally. Talking about the whole misinformation thing. Well, wait a minute. This is what gets me. Is the very purveyors of misinformation. I mean, remember about the whole bleach bidding everything, and how many cell phones did Hillary Clinton have, by the way, during the whole Benghazi thing? Remember that whole mess, right? The very purveyors of misinformation are the ones who are out there saying, we are here to deal with and correct any misinformation that's out there. Well, wait a minute. Listen now. We live in the United States of America. And let's not forget this, guys. I hate it. And sometimes it even slips from me too. When we call this a democracy, it's a horrible thing. We are a constitutional republic. And let's understand the freedoms that we have, that our men and women have fought for us to have within this country, that you should be able to say whatever information or misinformation that you want to say, because you have the freedom in this country to share it, just like all the rest of us have the freedom to turn it off. So, but see, what happens is when you go from a republic to a democracy to a socialistic way of government and on down the line, this is what they attempt to do. They want to take away all of our freedoms. They want to take away my freedom, John's freedoms, the freedom of our listeners to even be able to listen to the things that we are putting out there, because they say that the things, I mean, I've been nicked for it a number of times. They say that the things that we say is misinformation. But guys, eventually it's going to go from just nicking us on one social platform or another to eventually saying, hey, we're knocking at your door, and we're going to do like they're doing in England right now. We're going to knock at your door, and we will handcuff you, and we will immediately take you to, because this is what they're doing, immediately take you down to court. And right then and there is a hearing, and we will send you to prison for, 1 year, 5 years, 3 years, 10 years, whatever it is. They're doing it that quickly. Guys, this is where it's going.
Yeah, it's, and there have been certain things that have happened, protests about the last presidential election, and the response of the whole of government response to that by law enforcement and everything else has been it's a template for what they're going to do in the future. So, right. We saw people who've been dragged into jail, some being held now for over 3.5 years in jail, awaiting trial, and the Supreme Court having ruled a lot of the charges unconstitutional. And they should be dismissed, but I'm not aware that they're being dismissed. They insist that, well, we have a different way of looking at it than the government does. There was a ruling about presidential immunity, and the Jack, what's his name? The prosecutor in the documents case, Jack Smith.
I think it's Jack Smith.
Yeah, it sounds almost too simple. It sounds like some kind of fictional character. He just trying to file a 180-page brief, which, I mean, I was a lawyer, and getting permission to do that is pretty unusual. As to why everything that he's done nothing in the Supreme Court decision applies to anything that he's done. It's just absolute nonsense. And yet somebody who might have tried to investigate claims of fraud in the last election cycle, they've been disbarred, they've been jailed, they're tried, they're under indictment. It's lawfare. And of course, the people who burned down or set fire to courthouses and federal buildings during the BLM riots are uncharged.
Right.
And so, then Kamala Harris, Comrade Harris, can go around saying, crime is down, which is just a complete total lie. And nobody fact checks her, and it's totally out of control.
Well, no, that's because ABC was too busy fact checking Trump.
Right.
And then there's a whole whistleblower situation on that right now. I don't know why that would even surprise anybody, by the way, but
she did an interview with Stephanie Ruhle within the last day or two. Even the New York Times said it was pathetic. The New York Times said it was pathetic. That means, how bad that means it was?
Right. That's really bad.
I know. When your own propaganda arm criticizes you, you've got a problem. But I don't know what's going to happen in the election. I'm not going to make a prediction. So what do we got? 4 days in September, plus 5 in November. That's 9 plus 31 in October. So we got 40 days. That's kind of a biblical number too.
Interesting. Interesting. Hey, I do want to say, I see on the chat there on our app, Julio. Hey, how you doing there, Julio? And everyone else that's watching on our platforms. I see Bumblebee and Caterlin and Antonio and all you guys. Glad to see you guys this afternoon. Pookie, good to see you as well. So, all right. Well, hey, let's take a little bit of a turn here, and let's steer the vehicle for a little bit here to Israel, because Israel is what makes all of the things that we talk about, John, consequential. Israel is the focal point of really what God is doing, what God is going to do, of Bible prophecy, and we definitely want to talk specifically because all of these things that are happening, they're all feeders into the situation right there. And look, what's happening with the pagers, or what happened, I should say, with the pagers, with their walkie-talkies or whatever you want to call that, the day after that. And that whole thing was just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, when in world history have we ever seen a nation take such incredible steps to act with such a degree of precision against their adversaries, right? And not only that, I mean, what we witnessed there was absolutely, I mean, it'll be talked about forever, I think, But
I suppose if there are history books in the military history books that we'll study in the millennium, we'll be reading about.
Seriously. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. Nothing like it.
Can I just sort of review the steps and the progression on this operation?
Sure.
Back in February, Nasrallah gave a speech, and everybody was making a big deal. Oh, Nasrallah's giving a speech. It was a big nothing burger. He was going to lay out how Hezbollah was going to respond to Israel. This is back in February of this year. But in that speech, he kind of buried the lead. The lead was, hey, you guys, my Hezbollah guys, buddy, stop using your cell phone. Put it in a metal box because it's able to be tracked. It's a device that's subject to spying. And Israel, had developed, a company in Israel had developed that Pegasus software that was used to track people, sometimes in very not so nice situations, like the Sheikh of Dubai tracked his daughter. She was on a boat, a yacht, escaping, and they picked her up in Indian territorial waters and brought her back home. He's not a very nice guy. So he had a big divorce from his sixth wife. And as I said, you need to be careful, guys. It's the sixth wife that will always cause you the most trouble. And she happens to be, by the way, the half sister of King Abdullah of Jordan, but she ended up getting like a $700 or $800 million or £700 or £800 million settlement from him in courts in London, England, where she lives. Anyway, so Nasrallah says, don't use your cell phones. So they stopped using their cell phones. They went to pagers. So what did Israel do? Israel created a company. I don't know exactly how they did it. They either intercepted the pagers and altered them, or they manufactured them in the first instance with this shell company that had been set up, and they got Hezbollah to buy them, about 5,000 of them. They had replaced, it appears, one of the batteries. There were two batteries in there. The battery weighed about 23 grams, and they put a dummy battery in and filled it with about 20 grams of explosive. It's a genius operation because that amount of explosive is only going to damage the person who's holding the pager or has it in their pocket. You can see all the videos when they exploded in grocery stores and stuff. Nobody else got hurt. Nasrallah also said, though, over time that a lot of the operations of Hezbollah were designed to blind Israel. That's exactly the term that he used. And that's a very specific meaning term to people in cultures that follow the Quran. Blinding has a sort of a spiritual and physical aspect to it. So we're blinding Israel. We're taking out their listening devices on Mount Meron, or we're attacking the Unit 8200 base up in the Galilee, and we're blinding them. This is a wonderful operation. We're blinding them. He said it over and over again. Well, what happened when these devices went off? They didn't go off simultaneously, and my understanding is they were each detonated individually, but they were able to put these on Hezbollah people. I think there were a few people who were killed who were not Hezbollah. There's thousands were injured. There are between 500 and 1,000 that were blinded because they were reading the device. So it's sort of what one Jewish person said, commentator said, it was a reversal of Purim. It was like the reversal of Purim, where Haman built the gallows for Mordecai, and who ended up on the gallows was Haman himself. And so here they're blinding Israel, but now they have in their hand a device that blinds them. It's a very interesting thing, and they set them off. And I saw pictures. I played a video in my update last week, and these are on Al-Manar, their media, Hezbollah's media website, and Al-Akhbar, their newspaper site. And it's like, well, look at this guy laying in bed with his eyes are gone, his hands are gone, and these are medals for the mothers. That's what the newspaper described them as. Well, the response of some Jewish commentators was, no, dude, listen, what happened to you was you thought you would be a martyr. You're not a martyr. You're never going to be a martyr because you're not physically capable of being a martyr. The only thing that you're going to do every day for the rest of your life is realize what a burden you are to your family for how you ended up. Good luck with that.
Right.
Now, that sounds cold and cruel, but I have to say that part of me, I think we have sort of a misconception in Christianity a bit about God's justice and how God's justice works and how it's going to work when Jesus returns. So I'm not celebrating it, but I'm like, this seems like a very just moral thing that happened to you. It was the most targeted thing. So then they can't use their pagers, so they go, okay, it's sort of like switch to the other channel, but they switch to walkie-talkies. And the next day, the walkie-talkies and other devices that they were using, fingerprint ID devices and stuff, started exploding and killed, I think, even more than the first attack. And these were exploding while they were at funerals of the Hezbollah guys. So now, but that Israel wasn't done. So now they have to go to in-person communication, paper and in-person communication. They've tracked the guys who went to the hospital because they were injured,
right,
including some of the big Hezbollah guys, particularly with the Al Radwan Brigade. And so they have a big meeting in the underground parking garage of a big building in South Beirut. Israel hits them with a missile, kills 15 of these guys. The entire top command of the organization, they were having a meeting about doing a Gaza-style, a Hamas-style attack in the Galilee region of Israel. That was always the plan anyway. Now they've completely decapitated that group and many others throughout the Hezbollah organization. And so you see what happened was, now I've heard some commentators, anti-Israel, Jew-hating commentators, say, well, Israel's shot, they've blown everything that they have. They put it right out there. They've got nothing left. And I'm like, are you sure about that? I mean, are you really sure about that they haven't thought that through? You can't think through it like that. But your existential risk, there's not an existential risk of you not existing tomorrow. Israel is facing that, and so they're going to be incredibly clever, deep, and everything when they do this. And so it will go down. It is the most technologically sophisticated, covert, or military operation in the history of mankind.
Absolutely, absolutely incredible. What blows me away is how Israel gets bad press over that and is the bad guy for what they did so surgically. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. By the way, if anyone has watched any of what the Israeli government put out on the massacre that took place on October 7th, right? If any of you have watched any of that at all, which is the most
brutal.
It's hard for me to even say anything about it. It is the most brutal, upsetting, disgusting, horrifying, and I will say demonic thing that I have ever witnessed in my life. And it is, I don't know, guys. But now listen, what Israel did, and as far as I understand, when they did this with the pagers, it required, at least from my understanding, it required these men to respond to the, I don't know if I think it was a text or something like that, message that was sent to them. Maybe some of them responded just by pushing, the button to that in their pocket, and that's why it went off in the pocket.
I think it actually beeped once and nothing happened, and then it beeped again, and they picked it up to make it closer to them.
Right. Yeah, I heard that
it exploded.
I heard that there were multiple beeps, and I think if we are correct in what we're saying or our assessment of this, it would completely make sense. By the way, John, because it would really require the terrorist, I believe, to do that. They didn't just want it to go off indiscriminately. For example, let's say it's sitting there on the kitchen table, and the terrorist is, in the shower, taking a shower, and it just goes off at the kitchen table and kills the rest of his family or something like that. They wanted to make sure that it eliminated the individual terrorists themselves. I mean, absolutely incredible how they did this. And leading up to this, we got to remember, they were gathering intelligence all along the way until they detonated those. They were gathering intelligence on these guys. Who, what, when, where, communications, locations, you name it. Absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So we've got Bibi that's landed there in New York today, and he said while he was on the plane heading to New York, and I think right after he had landed, he said, there's all this talks of between the Biden administration and France moving ahead towards some agreement here. I want to make it clear, there's no agreement that has taken place for any ceasefire for a 21-day period of time with Hezbollah. At least this is what Benjamin Netanyahu has said. And
I don't think they even mentioned Hamas or Hezbollah in that document that they put out.
Say that again?
I don't think they even mentioned Hamas or Hezbollah in that joint statement that they put out. Clearly, it's a U.S. statement, but we were just kind of put in alphabetically of all the countries who are doing it.
Perhaps.
It came from our government. There's no doubt about that. And by the way, I just texted with our friend Bill Koenig a little while ago, and I'm like, my wife was this morning, she goes, did you hear about that hurricane? And I'm like, yeah, I thought, it's category 1. It's kind of, she goes, no, it's like, 20 foot or more storm surge and category 4. And this comes up as we're messing around with Israel at the UN.
Can't make it up. You can't make it up. How many times? And Bill is the guy who's really put all of that together over the years. I mean, I've been reading that stuff that he's put together for years now, and it's absolutely phenomenal. Again, you can't say that you believe in coincidences, because there's no such thing as coincidence. And it just takes more faith to believe something quite the opposite than to look at what you have before you and say, hey, there's something to this here. And I clearly believe, I believe you do too, that this is the God factor.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that the ability to conduct this operation in the manner that they have done. So back in 2017, a general, I think his name was Danny Eshkan, who was the head of the Israeli Air Force, did a speech at a security conference in Herzliya. And I have a copy of it. In that, he said that when we go against, if we have to go into Lebanon again, we're going to do shock and awe like the world has never seen. Now, I don't know that they've unleashed that yet, but by many reasonable estimates that I've seen coming out from security people in Israel, they've degraded about 50% of Hezbollah's capability to launch missiles and rockets in like 3 days.
That's what I read.
That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing.
That's pretty amazing, because when we understand that there is a minimum of 150,000 of those, and possibly even in excess of over 200,000 of those, just what they know of by way of intelligence. But even let's just go with the lowballing it here of 150,000. You're talking about half, as you said, 75,000 of those being destroyed. I mean, literally, what Israel is doing is they are decapitating the ability there with Nasrallah and Hezbollah like there is no tomorrow. It should cause a moment of pause there for them in Iran. And I mean, really, I think Iran, more than anybody, really is being systematically embarrassed on the world scene. They really are.
Well, Hezbollah has been saying, Iran, come help us, come help us. And Iran is sort of saying, not right now. We've got other things on our plate. So even Nasrallah was backing off, I don't know, a week or 10 days ago when he did a speech. I think he did a speech. There's a big article at Al-Manar, one of their media websites. And it talked about attacking Unit 8200, which is sort of the cyber security hacking division, the geek division of the IDF. And I mean that with all respect to geeks, because they're very important in modern warfare. And he said they'd killed 22. I've talked to a lot of people in Israel over the past 10 days. Nobody can confirm this. This was pure propaganda by Nasrallah. But look at how great we are. Look at the victory that we're having. And everybody is sitting around on their hands, for ever since they took out Hania, and then that number 2 guy in Hezbollah, Shakur, the day before, Shakur in Beirut and Hania in an IRGC facility, secure facility in downtown Tehran. Everybody's like, what's Iran going to do? What's Iran going to do? What's Hezbollah going to do? And Nasrallah came out and said, well, we've responded now. We've responded. We've blinded them. We've taken out and we've attacked them. So they're backing off. But Israel said, listen, we don't care. We have 80,000 people in the north, 60 or 80,000 people in the north. We have almost 150,000 people between the north and south that don't live where they lived a year ago. They don't have schools for their kids. They don't have jobs.
It's horrible.
They're living at government expense in apartments and hotels. It's a major economic crisis in Israel. And Israel's just saying, I think Israel's saying enough is enough. Now, some people in Israel are upset that it's taken them this long to say this. And our government still runs around trying to push them into it. Let me make one more comment. The Hezbollah guys, I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this or not, at the Al-Manar Hezbollah media website, they have a memorial section to all the Hezbollah fighters killed since last October 8th, when the Hezbollah war started with Israel. By the way, Israel's attacked on October 7th. Hezbollah attacks them on October 8th. Wasn't Israel attacking Hezbollah?
No.
And so since then, Hezbollah has launched 12,000 rockets towards Israel, about 3,000 just in the recent number of days. But in Israel in 2006, Second Lebanon War, Israel killed about 800 Hezbollah fighters. So far now, without any ground invasion or anything, they've killed 600. And that number may be over 600.
Actually, I believe the number is more like 1,500, but I might.
Okay, well, whatever the number is,
I could be wrong on that. It might be the total amount of people killed as a result of that is 1,500 over there in Lebanon. I don't know. I could have swore I saw the number 1,500.
Okay, well, that could be.
Whichever.
Well, and also this operation the other day, we don't know how many were actually killed in that operation. I've heard that it's like 75 between the 2 days, but I've also seen some intelligence documents that say that it might be 1,500 just from that operation alone. So let's just say they're killing way more now than they did back in 2006. But every one of those fighters gets a memorial page at Al-Manar website. And it's, a picture of it. And some of these guys look like they're 12, and some look like they're 70, like some of the guys killed, the big commanders killed recently.
Right.
Every single page, every single memorial page has this phrase on it: on the road to Jerusalem, he was martyred. Now, what does it say in Zechariah? That the nations of the world are going to come against Jerusalem in the end, and God's going to take care of them. And now these fighters who claim to be on the road to Jerusalem are being taken out by the hundreds.
Wow.
I think there's something very significant prophetically there.
I think there is too. By the way, side note is I believe he was the number 3 man. I think his name in Hezbollah there, I think his name is Ibrahim something or another. I don't know.
Shakur or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Now, I remember when I was a teenager, and it was in the early morning hours. It was still dark, and they had reported about the attack on our Marine barracks there in Lebanon. I was a kid. I remember it, and I mean, it was such a tremendous tragedy, such an attack, right? And this takes place now. Israel takes this guy out. Where is the American news saying, justice has been wrought here for this? It's like they don't want to talk about it. Maybe I missed it. I don't think so. Where did, what's his name? Biden. Where did Biden come out and say, hey, this is what this one was taken out, such and such. This is what happened back in, I think it was in 1983, if I remember right.
Yeah, about 40 years ago. Yeah.
Nothing. It's like crickets. It's like, what is wrong? I almost said with this regime that is in power here, and what is going on with the news media that is literally the lapdogs of this regime. I'm talking about here in America that is in power right now. It's absolutely sickening and disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And then you've got Israel. Mahmoud Abbas there at the UN. That's another thing that he shouldn't even be standing there. Israel must be stripped of UN membership, Abbas tells the General Assembly. Look, there have been more UN resolutions against Israel than against all the other nations of the world combined. Let's understand that, guys. And when the Word of God says that all the world will be against her, listen, that's what the Word clarifies that for us. And we watch that. We're seeing that taking place with the United Nations before our very eyes, guys. I mean, absolutely incredible watching all of these things happen.
Yeah, it's an incredible thing. And, Yeah, and the UN just last week adopted a resolution saying that within 12 months, Israel has to leave Gaza, West Bank, East Jerusalem, including the Temple Mount area, within 12 months. It has to be Jew-free.
Right. So,
why don't they say that the Israeli parts of Israel need to be Arab-free? They don't say that.
And the West Bank, by the way, just so all of the viewers understand, that's Judea and Samaria. So they like to call it the West Bank. We call it what it actually is. It's the area of Judea and Samaria.
And it's also, having been and traveled through that area a little bit, that is I talked to Tom Hughes about this a lot. It's almost like a scandal, in my view, that the true biblical heartland is almost off limits to people. I saw a friend of mine, I don't know if I'll use her name, Malka Fleischer, is actually at the Fleischer home for Shabbat in just 10 months before October 7th, almost to the day. And she said that she lives in Efrat. Her husband is associated with the Jewish community of Hebron. And she said the reserves are being called up. But she said, look, we have to do something about this. And we look forward to the day when we in Israel can go visit the places we want to visit. Can you process that? When we were in Shechem, which is in Nablus, when you go into Nablus, every intersection is a martyr square. It's a terrorist hotbed. It's where the biblical city of Shechem is located, and you can go there to that tell, and you can walk out there, and you can touch the standing stone that Joshua erected in Shechem as a memorial. And you can read about it in Joshua chapter 24. I've touched that stone. When we left, we got stuck at a checkpoint, and the Orthodox Jewish soldier who was the head of the unit there said, "Tell me why you were there. Why were you in Nablus? That's not a safe place to go." We went to Shechem. And he goes, "Oh my goodness. I'm an Israeli. I'm a Jew. I was born in Israel, and I've never been allowed to go the 1 mile down the road to this important biblical city. This is a massive scandal. I don't think we wouldn't tolerate, it's coming. You can't go to Yosemite because you're not part of the right tribe or something like that. That's coming."
Right.
But they don't let Jews go to Jewish places. They have to take a soldier contingent in there when they want to go into Mamre down in Hebron or Joseph's tomb up in Nablus.
Right.
They have to have like armed soldiers to get them in there to a Jewish historical and religious site. It's a scandal. It's a crime. And the international community doesn't say one word about it.
No, and people fall for this. A lot of Christians fall for this too. And John, just look at Temple Mount.
Right.
Just look at
we've got a whole bunch of Christians that want to say, well, that's not the Temple Mount. Baloney. It is the Temple Mount.
Right. Yeah, that's been...
Stop it, people. Stop doing that. You're wrong. When I was in Israel in December 2022, we went down to the city of David, and I asked one of the archaeologists down there, I said, "Hey, there's this theory running around American churches that the Temple Mount was located down here in the city of David." And he gave me this look like, is that a serious question? Are you joking? Or are you the stupidest person that I've ever seen in my life?
Right.
He said, "There's no evidence of it, so just stop it."
Right. That's like questioning where Mount Rushmore is or something, or I don't know.
Right.
Or where the Pyramid of Giza is. Really, it's
that's just a paper mache replica, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, come on, it just gets, and I don't think there's anybody in Israel that actually believes that, by the way. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And anyhow, maybe perhaps that's for another day. We get into all that, but because there's all kinds of things that could be discussed in regards to that whole thing. But I mean, just look, even the Jews, the issue that they have going up their Temple Mount, if it even looks like they are praying, it even appears like they're praying, except there has been a couple of things that have happened more recently over the past couple of months there that I have been a little shocked, where they're lying there prostrate and all of that. And I've seen some of the videos on that and everything. I was like, wow, okay. Go ahead.
There's going to be some very significant things happening, though. Carolyn Glick just posted a tweet a little while ago, probably, I don't know, whatever. I guess it was earlier today, about where this is going to go. And she did an interview with a Jewish lawyer who's on the faculty at James Mason Law School in Virginia. Eugene Kodorovich, I think Kodorovich is his name. And what they talked about was our government is putting sanctions on Jews who live in Judea and Samaria. For example, this one lady that they used an example of, okay, she has 8 children. She was protesting aid to Hamas. And we know that Hamas, there's video after video after video of them stealing the aid. That's why they're so upset about losing control of the Egyptian border, because they steal the aid and then sell it at a higher price and use that to fund their operations and skim stuff off so guys like Hania can be worth $3 or $4 billion when they live in luxury in Kuwait, while their people live in sometimes not so nice places in Gaza. But they sanctioned this lady, Kurt. They debanked her. They put out the United States of America government did not like her protesting and saying what she was saying. Now, first of all, that violates our First Amendment, but they'll say, oh, well, she lives in Israel. So we don't, the First Amendment doesn't apply in Israel. But wait a minute. Hamas is a terror organization. She's protesting against a terror organization. You don't like her because she's an Orthodox Jew living in Judea or Samaria. You want to make that area Jew-free. She is debanked. She has 8 children. She can't pay her mortgage. She can't go to the store. She's totally cut off from modern human life. And her bank accounts, and anybody who tries to help her, they get sanctioned also. Her husband accounts, their joint accounts, he's shut down. Married to her. I believe he's a doctor. He is an American citizen. So the United States government is shutting down based on this content of speech, what someone in Israel is saying that our government doesn't like, that doesn't match up with their stupid Obama-driven agenda. It's criminal. It's a crime. And Carolyn was reporting today that now what the U.S. government information getting to her is they're going to start sanctioning people who live in Judea and Samaria like crazy.
Wow. Imagine
that, Jews living in Judea. Think about how ridiculous, how evil, how demonic, how unbiblical this is. It's horrible. Right. And this is what Kamala Harris will implement if she's elected president.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And Israel and the Jews are always the bad guy. It's always their fault. And you know what? I will say that when you're talking about Hamas or Hezbollah or any of them, they are great at weaponizing the press. They really are. They do a good job at that. They can weaponize the press really well. And I'm just going to say it, guys, people are dumb enough to believe it. They are dumb enough to believe it and not, look back in history. All right. History always has a tendency to repeat itself, guys. So look back in the history of Israel and you'll learn plenty from there. All we're seeing is things just continuing really in one sense, repeating itself. You not only look back, but look forward. Look forward. Guys, it should be so abundantly clear to everyone what the adversary, he's the one who's really controlling the shots, if you would, of these different entities that are out there. Look at what the adversary is doing. This is exactly out of his playbook, all of these things, and we're witnessing it.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about the way this is going. If everybody complains, oh, APAC, they control the United States government. It's just such nonsense. It's such baloney. But here's our government, and the word is that they're going to sanction Smotrich and Gavir, who are important parts of Netanyahu's coalition.
Well, it's funny.
All of this is designed to get Bibi.
Listen, it's great that you mentioned that, because literally I just brought up right here, Israel slapped with first international sanctions since the start of Gaza war, gets banned from top science competition.
Yep.
Okay, so they get slapped with first international sanctions since the start of the Gaza war. How can that be that the victim in all of this, and just like you had said, look, October 7th, we know that was from the south. October 8th is when it began from the north. What did Israel do? Nothing. They were there as sitting ducks. They did nothing. How is it? I mean, it's like, guys, it would be like blaming the woman who gets raped because, well, why was she out at that time of the evening? Maybe she shouldn't have been out at that time of the evening. Or, well, maybe what she was wearing wasn't the best thing for her. And it's the same old trick, guys, of blaming the woman for getting raped. And here we see Israel is getting, I'm so frustrated with it. It honestly, it really ticks me off, John. I get honestly inside, I get honestly really angry about it, because it should be so obvious that you would think that people would be able to see it for what it is, But getting slapped with first international sanctions since the start of the Gaza war. How about this one right here? Let's talk about this for a moment. I've been wanting to get to this one here for a while. 40,000 fighters. Supposedly 40,000 fighters gather in Golan Heights from Iraq, Yemen, Syria, all of this coalition there against Israel. What do you have to say about that?
There's some things going on up there. Now, we know that Russia has long had Wagner Group soldiers or mercenaries embedded in Syria to protect Russian interests up there. Russia kind of tries to play both sides off here. They let Israel attack. They haven't given their best air defense stuff to Syria or to Lebanon. And Israel attacks on a pretty regular basis. They actually did a ground operation in Syria recently, and the word is they took some prisoners of IRGC guys that were at a missile factory near Homs, I can't remember the exact name of the town. It was south of Homs. It was in northwestern Syria. So Israel's operating there. Russia is there. By the way, I read a series of articles. They came from the Kiev Post. So in the fog of war, you always need to be a little bit careful about your sources. But what happened was that Kiev Post posted about Ukrainian special forces had attacked Russian forces in Syria and Sudan. Now, wait a minute. What's Russia doing in Sudan? They're trying to get control of Sudan and the resources there, and they're trying also in Libya as well. But why would Ukraine special forces travel from the Ukraine war theater to Syria and Sudan to take out these Wagner forces? That doesn't really make any sense until you read all the way through the article. What Russia is doing in Syria and Sudan is recruiting people to serve as mercenaries, and they are taken to Ukraine to fight on behalf of Russia. So Ukraine is cutting off the supply of these mercenaries at the source. But but Putin is getting very upset. Okay. And I have some friends who used to be in the intelligence services, and they sent me a lot of information. One of them was a American general who's saying, listen, Putin is threatening nuclear war. You need to take that very, very seriously, because exactly what his red lines are becoming very unclear now, and we don't know what he's going to do. It's a very volatile situation. So yeah, so those 40,000 soldiers or fighters in the Golan Heights, it's all part of this. It's all part of this. Now, the question is going to be, is this Ezekiel 38, 39? I don't think it is, but I just think there's something coming before Ezekiel 38 and 39. And so we need to pay very close attention to what's going on there.
Right. We do know that eventually Ezekiel 38 will take place, that God will put the hooks in the jaws there of the leader of Russia, be he Vladimir Putin or someone else. I mean, we don't know who that's going to be. But, just the whole dynamics of what is going on in the Middle East, to be honest with you, is absolutely fascinating to sit back and to watch. We see all of this, of course, with the head of the snake, Israel, or Benjamin Netanyahu calls the head of the snake there in Iran. And listen, they, just like you had said earlier, they're stepping back. You've got Hezbollah there in Lebanon, and they're saying, help. And Iran's like, well, I don't know if this works good for us right now. I don't think it's the right time. Well, they don't think it's the right time because they're trying to develop their nuclear arsenal right now. Look, they are being strategic in this, in my personal opinion, at least. They are being strategic because they're looking at the bigger prize. They're looking at being able to not only completely harness that nuclear capability. That's only part of the equation here, John. The other part of the equation is being able to get it there onto the tip of a warhead and lob that thing from point A to point B. That's a whole other aspect of the technology there as well. So there's a number of things that need to happen, but we all know that they're moving in that direction. It's no secret. Everybody knows that. And I mean, if I was the Ayatollah in Iran, I would hold back too. I'd hold back too until I have a little bit more in my pocket here to work with.
So Israel has been put in a place, I think, where any reasonable person responsible for defending Israel does not know how the U.S. election is going to go. Sure. I don't know how the U.S. election is going to go. And if Kamala Harris wins, it's going to be very, very bad for Israel. And Israel needed to do something. Now, here's one example. This is Eugene Kontorovich, the law professor at James Mason Law School or George Mason Law School, whatever, one of those Virginia law schools. And he wrote an article in the New York Post yesterday. It's in the paper today. Outrages U.S. Department of Justice defends UN staffers who collaborated in Hamas terror. So what happened? We know there's example after example after example that UNRWA officials had participated in the attacks of October 7th or supported them at least operationally. So what some people did was they came to the UN, they're UN employees. They came to New York where the UN is located and they filed a lawsuit. Our Department of Justice, and I say that "our" in the sense that I have no choice that they're the Department of Justice, they went into court and said, no, those UNRWA employees should have diplomatic immunity and not be subject to any legal action against what they did. That is criminal. That is a crime.
Absolutely.
So, and they participated directly in October 7th. It's documented proof. Our government goes into court to get the lawsuit dismissed and defends these terrorists.
Right, protects them and is a covering. The United States government protects them and is a covering for this. And guys, this is the reason why we speak out about these things. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled into thinking, oh, because we live in the United States of America, everything is all, peachy here. Come on, guys.
And do you think that maybe this has anything to do with Hurricane Helene going from a Category 1 to Category 4 in a very, very short period of time?
Right.
There's no question in my mind that they're connected.
No, not in my mind either, especially when you look at that, as we already talked about, when you look at that in conjunction with looking back in the past, every time this same kind of situations have happened like this, and whether it's President Bush or any of the others of them coming against Israel in one way or the other, and then all of a sudden, oh man, here's another big hurricane just all of a sudden comes up and absolutely crazy. You can't make it up how all of this keeps on happening. And here we are. Literally, we are in a time right now. I know we're going to wrap this up in just a minute. Now, listen, guys, we are in a time where we are watching God do the very things that he is doing, because everything is going to happen. I spoke about this Sunday night. Everything is going to happen according to God's prophetic time clock. It's not going to happen one moment sooner, and it's not going to happen one moment later, and it's not going to take a longer period of time than the period of time that we see that is outlined for us in the Word of God. Everything is going to happen exactly the way that God said it's going to happen, because God is sovereign, because God is omniscient, he's all-knowing, it's going to happen this way. And so that very thing right there, folks, that gives me hope in knowing that no matter what goes on in our lives, with our health, in our surroundings, in the economy, with this upcoming election, or any other number of things, nuclear warheads being lobbed at us from Russia or wherever. Guys, no matter what happens, our God is God. Everything must pass through his hands. He's in control. He loves us. He's got a plan. And we've read the end of the book. And guess what? All in Christ win. All in Christ win. And that's what I love. Hey, we've got about 2 minutes here. Can you wrap this up? Okay, I got a hand for 5 minutes, so that's awesome.
Okay.
What are your closing?
I'll only take two and let you squirm for a bit. That's the.
What are some closing thoughts that you have? And by the way, before I forget, everyone, hey, I encourage you to connect in the description section of this video. You'll see how you can connect with John Holler and everything that he's doing. I would encourage you to do so, and encourage you to share this, hit the thumbs up on this, and share this video with everyone out there on social media. But what are your closing thoughts this afternoon?
So I'm actually going to speak at the Go Therefore conference. GoThereforeConference.com is the website that's live streamed, or you can attend in person in Brookville, Ohio. Saturday, Patrick Wood, me, Mondo Gonzalez, Barry Stagner, Mike Spalding, and I always forget the other guys that are involved. But we'll be speaking on this. I'm going to speak on this, and I'll give you a short preview of my ending, because I use this a lot because I think it's appropriate. Do you remember the tsunami that hit the Indian Ocean after the Boxing Day 2004 earthquake that took place near Indonesia? Hundreds of thousands of people were killed. The tsunami went across the Indian Ocean towards the coast of Thailand, where they have resorts. Right. The interesting thing that happened was the water drained out of the bay as the tsunami was approaching. So people started walking out. Oh, look, there's a coral reef. We usually have to snorkel out here. We could just walk out here and look at it. Isn't that pretty? Isn't that unusual? And then people started recognizing that there was a white cap across the horizon. And somebody said, what is that? That looks unusual. And somebody said, well, it's a tsunami. No, it can't be a tsunami. And then it built and built, and they said, it's a tsunami. And you saw the locals, they knew what was coming. They ran because they knew the warning signs. They knew the signs of the approaching tsunami. It's, to me, a perfect picture of the times in which we live.
It sure is.
A tsunami of God's judgment is coming. We have been blessed by God to be aware of the signs that are coming so that we can take action ourselves and also warn others. But you have to do something. You have to be paying attention. And a lot of people had their position in eternity fixed that day because they ignored the signs. We should not be people that ignore the signs. There is a tsunami coming. And right now, you can get out there, or you can walk around and be, oh, look, they just did this global pact for the future of humanity. They care about us. They love us so much. Everything is going to be great. The UN is there. They're protecting us from those evil Jews who live in Israel. But the tsunami is coming, folks. Get ready.
It sure is. It sure is. The word tells us that, guys. And hey, I pray that that church, that you've got your eyes just fixed on Jesus, the author and perfecter of your faith. If Jesus Christ is not Lord and Savior of your life, know this, that Jesus loves you. Jesus loves you. He provided a way that you can be saved. Call upon the name of the Lord and be saved. Scripture says today is the day of salvation. I encourage you, get on your face before God, pray to the Lord, ask him into your life as Lord, as Savior, receiving his substitutionary sacrifice for the payment of your sins that he took upon himself on the cross on Calvary, that you may be set free, that you may be a child of God, and then follow him all the rest of your life. Guys, before I forget, next Thursday, we've got, actually, you mentioned Mondo. It just reminded me, we got Mondo Gonzalez on next Thursday. And once again, John, great. It's always great having talks and conversations with you. May the Lord just continue to richly bless you. Thank you for being on the program. And may the Lord just continue to richly bless each and every one of you that are on here today as well. Till next time, John. Till next time.
Thank you, Kurt.